I step on this, it comes forward. Look at that. Hello. Hello. So we'll get started. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Bowder, and welcome and thank you for being here tonight. It's a true passion of mine to get out awareness around Lyme disease, and it really means a lot that you guys have come here to learn about it and find out more about it. And probably a lot of you know more than I do about it, so it's great to come to these forums and share. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm an engineer, grown. I'd like to think I'm an engineer with a personality, but I don't know, maybe that's up for bid. I'm 42 years old, and I'm a chief strategic planner for an intermediate oil company, although I haven't been at work for the last 4 years. And what else can I tell you about myself? I've always played lots of sports and had a very healthy lifestyle. But I'm really curious as to who is in the crowd tonight. And so who here has been diagnosed with Lyme disease? You raise your hand. Diagnosed. I'm going to ask lots of different questions. So yeah. So of those people, if you keep your hands up, that the people with Lyme disease, and that's me as well, by the way, how many people have been diagnosed in Canada with a Canadian test? Okay. Okay. With a Canadian blood test. Okay. And so, and how many people have been diagnosed by Dr. Risk in Canada? Okay. Great. And then I'm assuming, but I'll ask the question anyway, that the people that weren't diagnosed in Canada, hi, welcome, have been diagnosed through blood work through the States. Great. And has there been, and that was me as well, is there anyone here that has been diagnosed a different way, either not through the Canadian or through the Canadian system or the American system?
I got this interesting rash on my ankle.
Yeah.
A year ago, last Christmas, and I thought, I've never had one of those before. That's strange. So I went and started looking on the net until I found something, and I realized, Lyme disease. What could that be? So I diagnosed myself for all intents and purposes.
Okay.
Because it said this cannot be anything else, and I've been
with the bullseye rash.
58 years without ever having a rash like that, and I thought,
self-diagnosed. Okay. You were self-diagnosed. Yeah. Yeah, I think ultimately a lot of us end up being self-diagnosed, and then we go somewhere to get the evidence. Yeah. Great. And how many people are here have a family member with Lyme? And how many people here have a friend with Lyme? Yeah, got it. And how many people here have nothing to do with Lyme but thought that this would be just the coolest place to hang out tonight? Thank you for coming. And did I miss anyone? Great. So how the evening is going to go is I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my story, and I'm sure it's going to be very similar to a lot of your stories, or everybody has a different story. I really get that. So I'm going to tell you my story, and then I'm going to pass the floor over to who we're all really waiting to listen to, and that's Dr. Risk. And she's going to go through her presentation. So in 2009, I was at work with my colleagues, and as I started looking at the page, I started to lose the vision of where I was looking. And over the next hour, that blind spot came bigger and bigger and bigger. So my colleagues took me to hospital, where I saw a doctor who said, you have a migraine, you need to go home. And at the time, I had severe head pain, numbness, shaking, and confusion. And the next day, my symptoms became much worse. My friends were quite concerned about me. I lost the ability to speak. It was very much like a stroke-like symptom. So we called 911. I went back to the same hospital, saw the same doctor, who sent me home, telling me I have a migraine. After that time, so this is July 2009, and after that time, my health deteriorated very quickly. Severe weakness, became unable to walk up a set of stairs, severe head pain, numbness down my right side, tremors, shaking, confusion, brain fog. Felt like somebody was standing on my chest. I'm sure I have more symptoms here that I can get to when I check my notes. stomach cramping, night terrors, Bell's palsy in the face, insomnia, joint pain, back pain, heart racing, anxiety, hunger, loss of appetite, everything was switching. And at the time I really had an inability to watch TV, to drive or anything. So my life came from, playing sports and working long hours to sitting on the couch and making it through the day, being grateful to see another day. I share these symptoms with you because if you're feeling or experiencing or know somebody that's experiencing any of these symptoms, you're not alone. And I know that can be a feeling when you have Lyme, is that you feel like everybody thinks I'm crazy and I'm the only person with this. So that's why I'm sharing my story with you, and as far as the symptoms. You'll also hear Dr. Risk's story of her of her battle and her symptoms with Lyme. So after that initial episode, I saw many doctors and specialists, neurologists, internists, infectious disease doctors. No one could find anything wrong. We went through tests. Every test came back negative. I got weaker after every test. In fact, after the spinal tap, I was completely incapacitated. I couldn't get up. I was crawling to the washroom. I couldn't get up for a week after the spinal tap. So it was just confusion, and yet the doctors were like, nothing's wrong with you. I'm very sorry, but we need to send you for a full psych exam. And to add to that pleasure, it was at Spyglass Hill, which is the women's jail in Calgary. So I got to go to the women's jail for a full psych exam, which they also found nothing wrong, although my friends protest. So luckily I had a great doctor on my side at the time, and that was Dr. Risk. And so she was able to diagnose. She says, boy, this sure sounds like Lyme. And sure enough, through the testing, we came through that it was Lyme disease. And I didn't realize that was 2.5 years between that episode at work and getting diagnosed with Dr. Risk. And I didn't realize what a weight on my shoulders it was of not knowing what it was. And then once it was another shock of, wow, how do I deal with this? But at least I knew until I found out what it was. And then I felt really alone. So that's why I'm so committed that nobody feel alone in this situation. So I started treatment with Dr. Risk in January 2012. I've been all natural. I haven't gone to any antibiotics, which has just been personal choice. Hi, welcome. Come on in. There's a seat at the edge, yeah. So it's been all natural. There have been no antibiotics. There's been what we call herbal antibiotics or microbial antibiotics. We've also been treating the co-infections that come with Lyme that Dr. Risk will speak more to. And we've been giving supplements to support my body through it as well, which many of you will know is so important. As we strip the body down of the Lyme, it's so important to build up the system that has been compromised with the Lyme. And she's also helped me tremendously with food, letting me understand what my body, through testing, what my body can tolerate and cannot tolerate. And I can tolerate, I'm happy to say, many more foods now than I could 2.5 years ago, or a year and a half ago when we started. As with many people, I was still concerned that, am I doing everything I have? Have we done all the tests we could do? Can we check? So even though I'd started the treatment with Dr. Risk in January 2012, in October 2012, I packed up my bags and went to Toronto to see a specialist and got every test under the sun done. So I spent thousands and thousands of dollars. I had samples taken from everywhere and had every test under the sun done. And I can say that I didn't find out anything new, and that all the results came back completely in line with what the testing that Dr. Risk had given me. By the way, the Dr. Risk test cost me $150, and I don't even want to add up what I spent with a doctor in Toronto. So that's my only plug for Dr. Risk. We're really here about Lyme awareness, but she has just done so much for me that I feel that I need to share that. And today, after 20 months of treatment, I'm significantly better than I was. I am involved in activities that I didn't think would be possible 4 years ago, and it's still ongoing. I'm still staying on the treatment, and I'm committed to continuing regaining my health. But I am so much better than I was 20 months ago. I would not have been able to stand here 20 months ago. So with that, I am going to stop talking, and you guys can actually hear the person you came to hear tonight, which is Dr. Risk. She is a doctor of Chinese medicine and a registered acupuncturist.
Okay. First, just want to make sure everybody can hear me, because if this doesn't work, I have a quiet voice, so we're in trouble. Just want to line this up. Everybody good? Okay. The next thing is I'm super nervous because I actually don't like public speaking. And if I talk too fast and you don't understand what I'm saying, just raise your hand. I'm not taking questions, but I'll slow down, okay? So we'll just go from there. All right, so falling through the cracks is anybody here who has Lyme probably feels like that's what happened to them. We've all fallen through a crack in our healthcare system, and this is something that we definitely need to recognize, but everybody with Lyme disease definitely falls through a huge crack. So I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine and a registered acupuncturist. Chinese medicine is 5,000 years old, so it's a complete health system. In China, some people just choose this instead of the Western medicine. So that includes herbs, acupuncture, diet, and lifestyle. And so that's what I'm trained in, as well as in my clinic I do acutonics, which is tuning forks on acupuncture points, which I find is a little bit stronger than the acupuncture. As well, I do biomeridian stress assessment. So this machine is the same technology as an ECG, and what it does is it measures stress in the body, pathogens, so I can actually test for Lyme, although this isn't a blood test. This is just an energetic test of whether you're testing positive for it. And it also tests allergies. So allergies are inflammation in the body, and when you have inflammation, that creates the allergies. And so with the work that I do, I monitor those as well as the stress, so we can see how your body is handling your treatment. And it does so much more for me. So like Sarah said, was able to completely diagnose her the same way that her blood work did. So just a little bit about me, and hold on. Sorry. Okay, I think we're good. We're good? Are we? Okay. So I actually got into Chinese medicine because I was ill, but we didn't know what was wrong with me at the time. We just knew that I was tired. So I was actually bitten by ticks when I was age 4, age 16, and Lyme is also in my family, so it is possible that I was even born with it and the symptoms just built up over time, and we actually don't know. But I generally go with that I contracted Lyme at age 16 because that's when I can go back to the more severe symptoms actually starting. So they started just at a slow progression, and by 2001 I was quite ill, and I had fatigue and digestive problems, and nobody could help me. I mean, I went to 25, probably more doctors, and I was diagnosed with Candida 5 times, and which, I mean, back then, 14 years ago, was probably quite progressive, but all the treatment for that did was give me a month of energy, and then I crashed again, and I had spent $20,000 at that point. And then I just kept going and looking for solutions because I kept getting sicker and sicker. And you know, there's a point where you think, well, maybe this is just what I have to live with because this is the way I am. And then there was a point where we just knew that this wasn't normal. We moved house and I couldn't even move, and I couldn't unpack and I couldn't pack. My mom had to come and help us. So that's when we knew that there definitely, although I'd already spent years looking, there was something wrong and we had to keep pushing. We couldn't just stop looking. And I was finally diagnosed in 2009 with a positive IGeneX Western blot done in the States. And I spent $20,000 that year for diagnosis, not treatment. So at the time of my diagnosis, I had Lyme and 2 co-infections, Babesia and Bartonella. I had a parasite, Candida, a positive rheumatoid factor, celiac disease, mercury toxicity. I was deficient in all vitamins, minerals, and amino acids, and I was allergic to absolutely everything. Some were minor and some were anaphylactic, and that was something I lived with for a long time, which I no longer have. At the time of my diagnosis, I realized that Lyme was an epidemic, and it was something that we weren't talking about. My cat was diagnosed the same month that I was, and I realized also that it was in my family, and that was what was wrong with my mom and my sister and my stepbrother, who has passed away from this disease. And although he was never tested, I definitely suspect that he had it. And then I realized I had friends and their friends, and it was just a long chain of people that actually had Lyme. So, they were saying that this doesn't exist, but it's rare, but if it's rare, why do we all know somebody who has Lyme? Some people, it's their neighbor, and how can it be rare if it's your neighbor or your friend? This is an epidemic, and even if you don't have Lyme, if you ask around, you'll find people do. So just a little bit about Lyme. We all mostly know this, so I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. Lyme was first discovered in 1981 by Willy Bergdorfer in Lyme, Connecticut, and it was a series of children with rashes and juvenile rheumatoid arthritis in their knees, and this mom looked around and said, "There's something going on. This isn't normal," and so. They looked into it for a few years, and they found the Lyme spirochete as the problem. There are several theories as to why there was an outbreak in the 70s and why this started here in North America. We don't really know, but what we do know is that it's a different strain than what they have in North America, in Europe, but close enough to that strain to just be a mutation of it. But people in North America are sicker than people in Europe. And we also don't get recognized as having a disease, so we're worse off than they are in Europe.
They're recognized in Europe?
In most countries, yeah. She asked if they were recognized in Europe, and as far as from what I've heard, friends I have there, they do get treatment and they get tested. What we do know, though, is that the Lyme bacteria is very old. And Itzi the Iceman, he was found in the Alps, and he's a few thousand years old, and he actually had the Lyme spirochete. He was completely preserved in ice, and they were able to find it in him. So this is a bug we've had for a long time, but the mutation or strain that we're dealing with now is new, and the outbreak is since the 70s. So the Lyme, it's a spirochete. So I said that before. What that is that's a corkscrew-shaped bacteria. It's just exactly what it looks like here. And it's commonly infected in mice, birds, and deer, and then the tick bite them, and then pass it on to the next animal that they bite. And that would be us, along with our pets. And it can also be transmitted by blood transfusions, pregnancy, and sexual contact. These have been proven, but they're not recognized, so these are modes of transportation. So you can be born with Lyme. It's called congenital Lyme. 50% of those infected actually don't remember being bitten by a tick. Now there are those other modes, but there is also that the ticks are this small. This is a little baby right here. And how would you see that crawling on you? And it could crawl in a little crack of your clothes, and then it numbs you when it bites you, and you have no idea. And you're searching for years for a solution. So you don't have to have a remembered history of a tick bite to have Lyme disease. And this is what our ticks here look like. Oh, sorry. We have a pamphlet on this, so you don't have to write them down. So Lyme disease has been reported across the world. This isn't a very accurate map. It was really hard to find one. They're now doing some fights, just like we are in Australia, to get it recognized, because a girl just died in Perth with it. So one of the things that really gets me is that we know that Lyme is endemic on either coast of Canada, but they'll tell us that it's not here, and they'll tell us, Lyme is not in Alberta. And, when the deer and the birds and all those cross the borders, the ticks don't just climb off, they come with them. And so we know that Lyme is spreading with birds. There's been a study done, and the birds fly across the world and with ticks on them, and the ticks jump off. So, and I did hear a story once of someone who actually had a tick fall off a bird onto his head and bite him. So this was at an iLads conference. So you know what, this does happen. We just, this is everywhere. So ticks, just a little bit about them. They actually have 3 stages of life. So they have larval, nymphal, and adult. So baby, teenager, and adult. At each of those life stages, they have a blood meal. So that's when they would bite us. So those little babies will bite us, and then any age will. Typically, Lyme is easiest to contract in the spring, which is why Lyme Awareness Month is in May, because that's when they're more active. But we do have a problem with that because we have global warming and our winters are warmer and our thaws come sooner. And so now it's possible to contract Lyme all year round. The ticks actually do not hibernate, so don't think you're safe just because it's January and you're out somewhere and everything's thawed. The ticks will actually be active. And the warmer winters are creating larger populations. We have earlier thaws, so the ticks become more active sooner, so our springs come sooner. And the warmer winters are also making a higher survival rate for mice, which are carrying the ticks and the Lyme. So we have a few problems with global warming. So one of the classic signs of Lyme disease is getting a target rash, flu-like symptoms, and joint pain. I never had any of those. I didn't have a target rash, and as far as I know, I didn't have flu-like symptoms, and I didn't get joint pain for about 8 years later. So this isn't indicative of what actually happens. A lot of people will say, well, I didn't get a target rash, so I don't have Lyme, or their doctor will say that to them. And in my research, I've actually found that nobody knows what percentage of people get target rashes, because I see it listed 80%, 50%, 20%, 10%. So which one is it? We don't know. It can be different strains will create the rash. The theory is also that when Lyme was first new in the 80s, we didn't have as many infections in the ticks because they now carry more than Lyme, and so that classic Lyme always gave us a target rash. But now we're getting more than one infection, and so that's messing with our immune system, and then our reaction is different because this is an immune reaction to the infection, and we don't always get that. So a lack of a target rash doesn't mean a lack of Lyme. And then when you do contract Lyme, there are different stages. There's early infection, which is the first few hours, maybe a few days. And then the infection starts to spread. And then there's chronic Lyme. And there's actually not a full diagnosis for chronic Lyme in North America because we don't agree on whether it exists. iLads believes that chronic Lyme is an infection that persists after a year of treatment, but I've also seen it listed as having neurological symptoms. So once you have neurological symptoms, I believe that's chronic Lyme because once it's in your nervous system, it's a lot harder to get rid of. So that can be considered chronic, in my opinion. What do I know? So just to return to my story, I could have gone online and just given you a list of here's what classic Lyme disease looked like, and here's some symptoms that go along with it. And what I think is more important is to actually share with you what somebody with 14 years or a lifetime, whichever it is, of Lyme actually looks like. So just bear with me because I never really get through this list if you've seen my other video. But at the height of my illness, I'm going to read all these to you. These were my symptoms. I had fibromyalgia, persistent swollen glands, sore throat, sinus congestion, chills and fever, sore soles on my feet, plantar fasciitis, tendinitis, Morton's neuroma, joint pain and swelling, carpal tunnel syndrome, TMJ, neck creaks and cracks, neck stiffness, neck pain, unexplained back pain, muscle pain and cramping, obvious muscle weakness, twitching of all muscles, shin splints, seizure-like symptoms, so I had absolutely no control of my body. Burning, swollen lips, swollen tongue, edema, confusion, difficulty thinking, difficulty with concentration, so I had trouble reading, absorbing new information, and word search. Oh, and I just got lost. I shouldn't look up, hey? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, forgetfulness, poor short-term memory, poor attention, disorientation, getting lost, going to wrong places, speech errors, wrong wording and misspeaking, messy syndrome, which is the ability to function at work but not at home, mood swings, irritability, depression, anxiety, social anxiety, panic attacks, tremors, headaches, head congestion, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, sensitivity to heat, vision, double, blurry, and floaters. dry eyes, ear pain, hearing, buzzing, ringing, and decreased hearing, increased motion sickness, vertigo, spinning, off balance, tippy feeling, lightheadedness, unavoidable need to sit or lie down, tingling, numbness, aching, burning, or stabbing sensations, shooting pains, skin hypersensitivity, acne, psoriasis, eczema, rashes, dental pain, periodontal disease, poor recovery from surgery and injury, fatigue, poor stamina, extreme fatigue with too much activity, vertigo and heaviness with too little activity, insomnia, fractioned sleep, napping during the day, unexplained weight gain, so I gained 20 pounds in 1 month, but the years before I actually lost weight for no reason. Unexplained hair loss, pain in genital area, unexplained menstrual irregularity, breast pain, fibrocystic breasts, loss of libido, PMS, irritable bladder, oily urine, nausea, vomiting, dry retching, heartburn, stomach pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain, abdominal cramping, lack of appetite, skin tags, stretch marks, red papules, heart palpitations, and skip beats and chest wall pain. My heart was actually so bad I spent probably a year of my life sleeping sitting up. Sore ribs, breathlessness, air hunger, unexplained chronic cough, burning breath, night sweats, day sweats, exaggerated symptoms or worse from alcohol, addictions, multiple food allergies, multiple chemical sensitivities. My symptoms flared at the full moon, and I was completely healthy according to all my tests. And right here. So at the height of my illness, I was taken to ER, and I had, this is the next day, so this is about a quarter of what I went through. I had it was seizure-like symptoms. They weren't seizures, so I was completely conscious, but I couldn't control my body, and it went on for hours. And I had twitching like this that I was luckily I knew what it was, and I knew what to do. And this twitching went on for about 6 months, and then I had some facial tics, and now I don't have any of that. So that's called neuro-Lyme. And when I went to the doctor to get referred to a neurologist, he wished me luck. So I just want to make it clear, because a lot of people, they see these long lists and they say, but I don't look like that. I don't have 125 plus symptoms. So I just want to point out that that was after 14 years of illness, and some people do get those many symptoms right away, and some people actually only have 2, and they have positive tests for Lyme. So my first year I just had eczema and anxiety. My second year I developed back pain and tendinitis, and then I went to insomnia and addictions, and it built up and it built up. And by the year 14, I was getting a new symptom every month that we couldn't get rid of. But Lyme disease doesn't have to look like 125 symptoms, but that's where you'll end up if you don't treat it. So there's also some non-physical symptoms of Lyme, which probably all of you who've been diagnosed have been through this. One of them is having visited from 3 to 30 doctors and nobody being able to give you an answer. The other one, of course, is financial challenges. Like I said, I spent tens of thousands of dollars just to get diagnosed. I don't think people should have to go through that, but the calculated average cost per person for treatment of Lyme is about $100,000 in the States. So that's the burden it can be on a family that has more than one person who's ill. And like Sarah said, she was sent to a psychologist because they couldn't find something wrong. So you're always told it's in your head. There's nothing wrong with you. I was just wish luck when I was twitching all over the place. So this is a very common thing to hear. There's also outside pressures to stop treatment. So, you can read that Lyme takes 4 weeks to get rid of. So your family and your friends who are, 6 months later going, why are you still going through treatment? This person must not know what they're doing who's treating you. And they'll try to get you to stop because they think you're just wasting your money. And there is lack of support. So there's a lot of people's families don't believe them because this disease isn't recognized, or they just don't have that support there in place anyway. And social isolation, even if you have the support, it's very, very difficult with this disease to actually leave your house and be social. I had social anxiety that was almost paralyzing, so it was really difficult for me to go out in a group with more than 1 or 2 people there. And that was a factor, as well as the fatigue, that I just couldn't go out anywhere. I couldn't go anywhere. Plus there was also the chemical sensitivities and what was air going to be like, and anyway, blah, blah. List goes on, right? And the divorce and end of friendships. So of course, people don't understand that you're ill, or the emotional aspects that can come along with the illness, so the anxiety and the depression, and they don't understand that, and they just don't understand why you're just not going to get over it. So, you know, people, they're just kind of done with you at that point. And there's also the denial and lack of acceptance of the disease by the patients themselves, which is human nature. So Lyme disease can be misdiagnosed or come along with several diseases. I'm not going to list these out, but the most common ones are MS, Parkinson's, ALS, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and Alzheimer's, etc. These are linked to Lyme, and some people will say that it's always Lyme. So to get Lyme disease diagnosed in Canada, this is a quote from the Health Canada's website. And to diagnose Lyme disease, there are several steps you have to go through. So it's not actually just by blood work. There is the doctor's assessment of the patient, so taking history. Did you have a bullseye rash? Were you bitten by a tick? Which we know isn't indicative of whether there is Lyme or not. And there is also then with that also the laboratory tests. Now even on Health Canada's website it says all laboratory tests have a margin of error, which is why Lyme disease should be diagnosed clinically first and foremost. Laboratory testing can be used as supportive evidence. Now of course the most common things that happen if you if you do get tested in Canada, if your doctor will actually do that for you, it will come back negative and they'll say that's it. Or if it's positive, they'll say we need to reassess, this is probably a false positive. So unfortunately, this is what happens. So to test Lyme, there's a two-tiered testing system. So and these test antibodies. So the first test is called the ELISA, and the second test is called the Western blot. And in Canada, we only test for one strain of Lyme, and there are many. So the ELISA is called a screening test. And what a screening test does in these kind of tests is it's a little bit cheaper than the second test. And what it will do is it's just a little oversensitive, and it should be offering positives and false positives. And then you would go to your second test and you would get tested, and then that second test will come back and tell you whether or not that was a positive or a false positive. The problem with that is the ELISA test actually has 35% false negatives, which means a lot of people with Lyme don't even go to the second test. Their doctor says you don't have Lyme, the screening test says it's negative, that's it, off you go, look for something else. So this doesn't work, this model. The Western blot is the second test. So what this test does is it tests for antibodies that you are making for Lyme. It does have its own problems as well. So, I mean, not all patients have antibodies at all times. When you're first bitten, it can take up to a month for your body to produce those antibodies. So if you're tested on the first day or two because you have a target rash and your doctor says, let's wait and see if the test says, and then the test comes back negative, you actually have an infection and they miss some of the signs. And then if they wait a month later to do it again and it's positive, then you could probably have chronic Lyme at that point. And so the other thing is that the longer that you have the infection, the less antibodies you're going to have because of the way that the Lyme works, because it will start attacking your immune system, and then your immune system doesn't work properly and you stop making antibodies towards the infection, and then your test comes back negative and they say you don't have Lyme. And you don't have Lyme because you had it for 20 years and you don't have an immune system anymore. So in Canada, when you get your test back, it says positive or negative, and that's it. And that's where you go. They don't give you any of the details. Most of the other tests you actually get from labs will give you a little number and they'll tell you the range they're looking for, and you don't get that here. It just says positive or negative, reactive or not. So we know that test doesn't work. It's only testing for one strain and it's not very sensitive. So the best test in North America is the IGeneX Western blot. This is the most comprehensive. And so you would get your blood drawn here and send the test away, and your test results would come back to your doctor or whoever is doing that for you. Anyway, so it's IGeneX. Go to IGeneX, guys. They're the best.
What kind of accuracy would you say?
I have actually seen different. It can be, some people say it's 100%, some people say 75, and some people say 50. but it's more accurate than in Canada. And there are ways to read it so that you can know if you've had contact with Lyme so that you can get your immune system to work properly and then have a positive. So just going to explain this test a little more, but first we have to talk about the immune system a little bit and how that works. So when you have an infection, your immune system makes antibodies to that infection. Those are soldiers that are specifically trained to fight that infection. So in here we're going to talk about antibodies for Lyme because your body is going to start making those. So that's your body's defense. That's how it works. So the IgM antibodies are the first antibodies that are produced when you have an infection. Those ones are a little bit bigger than the IgG antibodies, but they come out first and they work their hardest at getting rid of it. And then if you have an infection for longer, it will be IgG. And those are the second antibodies. So the presence of the IgG long-term antibodies with no IgM, so the first responder antibodies, means that the person was exposed to an infection at one time and developed antibodies to it, but they don't have the infection anymore. This is a perfect world, okay? This is not true with Lyme, but this is true with other infections. Once we make an antibody towards something, then we keep it. And that will help us when we come in contact with it again. We already know how to fight it. The problem with Lyme disease is that because it mutates and changes, and because it attacks our immune system, we will no longer be making those antibodies, and we won't be able to find anything on tests. So, the IgG and IgM isn't indicative of whether you've had chronic or not Lyme, if those come back positive or negative on the IGeneX Western blot. So when you get that IGeneX test, you get those two results. You get IgM and you get IgG. A positive for either means you've had contact with Lyme, and if you've never treated it, then that's a positive for Lyme because you've spent years looking for a solution. So can you see that okay? So that's what the tests look like. This is my test. The numbers going down the side here. So these numbers along here, you can see all those down the side there. Those are called bands. And basically the best way to explain those is they're like representations of body parts of the Lyme. So when you will actually make an antibody towards each of those little body parts. So some of these bands represent only Lyme, and some of these can actually also be made by other bacteria. So this is one of the controversies over this test. So the ones that are specifically for Lyme are 18, 23, 31, 34, 37, 39, 83, and 93.
Bingo!
So the starred ones are actually the ones that the CDC says you have to have as a positive. And the other ones, so 18 is actually left out of that. And a plus sign means you're positive. So the different levels of being positive, you have a plus sign, or you can have more than one plus sign. Those are positive, just more pluses means more antibodies. And an IND, which means indeterminate, actually means that the lab saw something and they didn't know what they didn't see enough to give you a plus sign, but there is actually antibodies there, so there's a reaction there. So what you can think of that as this little IND right here is like a little faint pencil line, and the pluses are like pen lines, and then this would be a big fat Sharpie line. And if that IND had been a plus sign, I would have been CDC positive on my test. I was not. So the CDC requires 5 bands to be positive within their criteria, so not the specific Lyme ones, but the starred ones, which we know from the last slide. Here, here, they don't actually match. So some of the starred ones are on there, and they can be made by other bacteria. So basically, you can go misdiagnosed. But if you have, on the next slide, if you have a positive and any of those numbers that were specific to Lyme, then you actually have had contact with Lyme. If you have a positive, like just on number 41 and that's it, it could actually mean another infection. So you want to just make sure that you can read this properly, and because your doctor may not be able to if it's just your family doctor helping you out with this. But if you have any of those numbers, then this Lyme. So this is my lovely one there. So you see a positive for IGeneX because their criteria is a little less, but this CDC is a little more strict, so I wouldn't have made it in. And so just to recap, because I know people are taking notes today, if these are the numbers here, so 18, 23, 31, 34, 37, 39, and 83 and 93. Those are the ones that are specific for Lyme. So just to reiterate that if you get a little sign that you have Lyme, and you're pretty sure you do, and you and your doctor practitioner can get together and talk about this, and then you can say, you know what, let's treat for Lyme, and then we'll retest. And then when you retest after you've done some work, your immune system might start working better. Although that's not always the case. I've seen people after a year of treatment where that doesn't happen, and then proof later that they did have Lyme. But most of the time, your body would start working, and then you would start making antibodies. I believe that the only reason I had that test with so many starred bands with how sick I was because I had been taking Chinese herbs for 8 years beforehand. And that kept my immune system working, which is probably part of why I was so sick, because I was fighting something. So we're not going to talk a lot about all the other things that can come along with Lyme, but this is a very, very complicated disease. It comes with co-infections, so those bugs that bite you, they don't have just Lyme anymore. I mean, that used to be the case where that was mainly what was going on, but we now have co-infections. And then we also have other complications with Lyme. So that would be, viruses, parasites, heavy metals, mold toxicity. KPU is a condition that can come with Lyme, EMF exposure, and multiple allergies as well. And I mean, the list goes on. Some people have 2 things going on along with co-infections, and some people, if it's been 20 odd years, you've got a really long list because your immune system hasn't worked for a long time. So this is what happens when you first get Lyme. Some people will immediately notice symptoms after they contract the illness, and they will, they'll get a rash and they'll get flu-like symptoms, and they'll never feel better, and they'll know exactly when they got sick, and they'll know how long they've been sick. And for some people, the Lyme will come in their body, but say they have a strong immune system or there's something else going on, it can actually just go into a remission, and it will hide there, and it won't necessarily cause any problems. It can also be causing problems and you just don't notice, because for example, I didn't have a target rash and a full flu symptom, so I wasn't looking for anything for years. And that can also be triggered by stress. So sometimes it's like in December, somebody's sick and they're like, well, it's winter and there's 3 feet of snow on the ground, and why would I get Lyme now? And they probably had it for years and years, and then something happened that triggered their stress response, which made their immune system get weak, and then the Lyme came out. So those little spirochetes, what they do when they come inside our body is they stick to our cells, and then they use a little enzyme that will digest our cells, and they will start to wiggle their way inside. They actually are like a corkscrew. They go like this inside. They will either take up residency, or they will kill the cell that they're going inside, and they can actually lie dormant or be active. And so this is a video of the Lyme. So there you can see little spirochetes in the cells. So watch over here. That's a guy coming out, and then now watch these guys over here. And there they go right there, all the way inside. Sorry, this is going to get more graphic too. I'm really sorry, guys. I know no one likes to hear this. Okay, so that's what it does when it's in our body, and then it goes in and it does a whole whack of other stuff. So here we're going to go over every one of these, so I'm not going to read them out, but the Lyme can do a whole bunch of stuff. So it definitely is smarter than we are. The doctor that diagnosed me, that was a comment that I made to him because it was killing us, and we were actually fighting over whether or not it existed. So, I mean, really, who's the more intelligent being here? Is definitely not us at this point, I think. So one of the things that Lyme does, as soon as it feels like it's in danger, is it will actually create cysts. This will happen as soon as you start taking antibiotics. And also when it just feels like it's in danger, it will actually become a compact roll, and it becomes covered in a capsule. It looks exactly like a cyst. So you can see here, got a little spirochete in there, and this is the sac. And this, yes?
Is this the same as biofilm?
Nope. This is different than biofilm. So this is an inactive form of Lyme. So it will do this to protect itself. It can come out of it anytime it wants. So when it feels like the environment is safe, it will then come out of the cyst. And it will become lodged in tissue. And some people believe this is one of the many reasons why we have so many problems and pain, because it becomes lodged in tissues and causes a lot of problems, even though it's inactive. Still there. Sorry guys, another video. So this is how fast this forms. Oh, it's both of them. They're sensing the same thing. There you go. Right there. Can you see? Is that okay? Sorry. You guys saw that? Okay. Oh yeah, we can watch again if you're having trouble. He talks about it.
Do you feel this happening?
Not really, no. No. So there you go. You can feel the effects of it because you can, plateau or that kind of thing, but you don't actually notice it. I mean, these guys are microscopic. I mean, this is a dark field microscope looking at this. So there's another form. This is called an L form, and it has 3 names, and I'm going to talk about, I'm going to use a round body just because I'm going to talk about a study, but there's the L form, the round body form, or a cell wall deficient form, or a CWD. So what cell walls are, is they're a wall around a cell in plants, bacteria, Lyme disease, and human beings and animals don't have this cell. So this is important to know. We don't have this, the Lyme does. It's a form of protection. The Lyme can actually shed this cell wall anytime it wants, and then it loses its spirochete shape and it becomes more active. So this is an active form of Lyme, and some people believe that this is actually the form that it prefers, because the deeper you go into tissue, the more you find this form where the spirochetes are just like a movement to get into things. And it can change back and forth between spirochete and L form, and of course cysts, as much as it wants. And this makes it completely invisible to the immune system and to antibiotics. And of course biofilm, which is what I talk about a lot in clinic, because this is a big deal. I mean, they're all a big deal. But biofilm, what that is, and Lyme isn't the only bacteria that make this, so this isn't a new phenomenon, but biofilm is a mucus layer that it will hide in. So if you think of a castle with a wall around it, and there's bad guys inside, we got to take cannons and shoot at the wall so that the bad guys will come out so that we can kill them. And that's basically what we're doing with treating biofilm. This is antibiotic resistance. The bugs will hide inside the biofilm, but they are still active, they are still breeding, and they're still talking to each other, and they can still cause problems because they're adhered to your cells, so they can still cause like some numbness and stuff like that. So this is a semi-active, I guess, because it's not floating around, but it's still causing you problems. Yes, Lisa?
I asked a lot of questions.
Can we save them for the end?
Yeah, I guess could be just the L form, are they active?
The L form, yeah. So biofilm will also house more than just Lyme. It will actually invite all the friends in, come on in, let's save ourselves from these antimicrobial things in our body. And they'll start talking to each other, and they'll share information, and they'll swap genetic information. So if you have a drug-resistant bug in your body, and it goes into this biofilm, it will share that with all the other bugs there, and the Lyme will go, yay, now we can live without even worrying about it. And they reproduce every few weeks, and within a few generations you have completely antibiotic resistant strain of Lyme. And this is, they're also completely protected inside the biofilm. And this is how the biofilm forms. So this is them just sticking to your cell wall. And there's its armor, biofilm. Yeah. And then it can choose to let some out to see if it's safe, and then reinfect you, and then go back in, and it can actually detach and go elsewhere as well. And so this is what happens when you stop antibiotics or your treatment. You will, if you don't do biofilm work, you put it into biofilm or the cyst form, and then as soon as you stop, it comes out like that. So if you don't do that work, you're in trouble. So it can also change its surface protein, which is like putting on a disguise. So that's like changing your clothes and putting a wig on and no one can recognize you. It's exactly the same. It does this mostly when it goes in the L form, but it can do this however it wants to protect itself. And it can hide in your white blood cells. So our white blood cells, those are our soldiers. And this is it going in those and infecting them, and then they don't work anymore. That's your immune system. And this one, if you're faint of heart, you won't want to hear this one. This is called transfection, and this is a quote, is the best way to explain this, from the book Cure Unknown by Pamela Weintraub, which if you haven't read, I recommend you find. So Dr. Alan MacDonald is the one that did the research on finding whether or not we have biofilm, and this is something else that he found as well. So Dr. Alan MacDonald found something literally monstrous. In the cells of 7 Alzheimer's brains, he tracked a DNA sequence, apparently part human, part spirochete. See, this one gets me. A deadly, ungodly hybrid combining Borrelia and us. What he found, MacDonald asserts, is evidence of transfection, in which the proteins causing illness are no longer manufactured by Lyme spirochetes, but by the genes of the patients themselves. Once it's in your DNA and you're churning it out yourself, you're cooked. So start treatment, guys, if you haven't yet, because that's what happens. So all of these are ways that Lyme protects itself. And just like Lisa said, I think it was Lisa, it is like an alien. I saw some weird thing the other day where a guy was saying this is, not from this world, but it might be, we don't know. It's just weird. So conventional treatment of Lyme disease is with a course of antibiotics, 2 to 4 weeks actually. Even if you've had it for 20 years, 2 to 4 weeks is all you're going to get. So on Health Canada's website, this is exactly what it says, is that Lyme disease can be cured in 2 to 4 weeks with the following antibiotics. And Of course, it does say that patients diagnosed with in the later stages of the disease can have persistent or recurrent symptoms requiring a longer course of antibiotic treatment. They don't say how long that is, but doctors that do treat for longer than 2 to 4 weeks are actually at risk of losing their license. Even if it's not you that turns them in, your pharmacist can do that, or anybody else who finds out. So, this is something we have to change. Although I don't believe in antibiotics for myself, I think that they save lives, and I think that we need to get Lyme disease recognized, and we need to get the treatment length lengthened so that people can, survive this. So in the Lyme community, it is believed that Lyme should actually be treated for 18 months, and we'll talk about why. In Canada, we do not recognize chronic Lyme disease, so if you do get antibiotics, you will be given 4 weeks. So this is what antibiotics do with any infection. So they actually inhibit the formation of cell walls. They're only effective when the bacteria is dividing, so that's when it's reproducing, and then when it's reproducing, the antibiotics will stop the formation of the cell wall in the new babies, whatever you want to call them, and then they'll eventually die off, and your immune system will kill them, and they won't be able to reproduce. So for strep throat, very common infection, that bacteria reproduces every 20 minutes. But, and so we're given antibiotics for 7 days. So if you do the math, every 20 minutes, 7 days. The Lyme life cycle is 12 to 24 hours, and you need to be taking antibiotics when it reproduces. I think this varies per strain, so that can be a little different. But this slow replication time means that you need to be taking antibiotics for 18 months while they're dividing, or you won't kill this bacteria. And as we know, you'll put it in biofilm and cis form, and it'll just hide anyway, so what's the difference? And just to point out, the antibiotics don't touch that L form of the bacteria, because remember, that's a cell wall deficient form. So the antibiotics don't touch that. That's a completely antibiotic resistant form of Lyme. So this is a study done by Eva Sappi and others in 2010 on a comparison between the herb Cemento and Banderol and antibiotics. And these are the results of the study. So just to explain a little bit, these on the edge here, these are controls. So they aren't part of this study. These here in the middle, those are all different dilutions of the herb. So all along here. And this tall one here, that's doxycycline. Now doxycycline is the antibiotic that treats Lyme that is most commonly used. So what you're seeing here is the blue, that's spirochetes, and the pink, that's round bodies or the cell wall deficient Lyme. So that's the one that can't be touched by antibiotics. And you can see the herbs treat both forms of Lyme. And what the doxycycline does is it increases the incidence of the cell wall deficient. So doxycycline isn't your choice, and if that's the only thing you're taking for your treatment, then you need to find something else. So this is from the study as well. This is what Lyme looks like just on its own. So you can see there's some biofilm and there's actually some round bodies in there and some spirochete. So it's just kind of doing its thing. This is what it looks like with the herbs. So you can see it shrunk and there is no round bodies and there is no biofilm. So all of that is actually broken up with the herbs. And this is what it looks like with doxycycline. So there's more round bodies and there's more biofilm. It's just protected itself. So doxycycline isn't your answer. And it actually makes it harder to treat. So just a quote from the study. Here we have provided evidence that 2 natural antibiotic agents, Cemento and Banderol, has significant effect on all 3 known forms of Lyme bacteria in vitro. We have also demonstrated that doxycycline, one of the primary antibiotics used in the clinic to treat Lyme disease, only has significant effect on the spirochetal form of Lyme. So it just treated that one form, and that's it. And this is a quote from Dietrich Klinghardt, who is a leading Lyme doctor in the world. He's German and he practices in the States. He is a medical doctor, and he says antibiotics as a solution are naive. Antibiotics are part of a Lyme treatment in many cases, but they are not all of it. So if the only thing your practitioner is doing with you is antibiotics and that's it, and they're not covering any of these other forms, then you are not treating your Lyme, and you're actually just putting it further and further into remission and making it harder to treat. So the first step in treatment is to assess the patient's lifestyle, because if you're not sick, you're not always taking care of yourself, and sometimes we have to get somebody to start being able to do that, because when you have Lyme, your body is quite sensitive, and there's some things that we need to do. So diet changes are number one. All of my Lyme patients come off of gluten and sugar, because that feeds the infections, and then dairy is either eliminated or limited, and oxalates can also be an issue, and as well as many others. I do allergy testing, so we eliminate allergies, and then we work on the gut. We also need to assess if there's chemical sensitivity, so they can protect their home from perfumes or anything like that. EMF exposure, so that's electromagnetic frequencies, so like from computers or power lines. And if those are running through your bedroom, you're not going to be sleeping, and that's going to make it harder to treat, because you think the insomnia is from the Lyme, and you're going in circles because you can't get better if you can't sleep. If a patient is able to exercise, I do encourage them to do so, but that's a tricky balance, because any exercise that makes you tired after is too much, and for some people that's getting up and walking across the room, and for some people they're still able to do hot yoga and they do just fine. So you need to find where your balance is, and I mentioned the hot yoga because most people with Lyme can't even deal with heat, so I was one. Anybody else? No? Yeah. So, and there's also whether or not the patient can work. I worked part-time through mine. I probably couldn't really, but I did anyway because I'm a little bit stubborn. Not everybody is able to. But if you're not able to work, I encourage people to find something that can distract them, because if you sit at home and think about how sick you are, you're not going to get better. So you need something to distract you, whether it's going to work or just finding something else that you can do. And there is also taking care of the emotions and the spirit, because emotions come up with the infection. Anxiety is one of the symptoms of Lyme and one of the co-infections, as well as depression, or just feeling that way because you're sick and nobody's taking you seriously. So we need to find a way to get that in balance, whether that's a psychologist or a medication or whatever it is. And energy work includes meditation, tai chi, qigong, acupuncture, going for a walk sometimes is meditation for people, but something like that just to help you feel a little more grounded. And you need to develop a team of practitioners, because there isn't one person in this world that knows everything about Lyme, because we don't know everything about Lyme. And you need to find a team to help you with your symptoms. So whether that's that you have a lot of pain and you need a chiropractor or physio, or whether you need 2 doctors to treat you because one will do it, whatever it is, you need to find those. And of course, there are self-therapies, so things you can do at home, which are Epsom salt baths and castor oil packs and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what happens when you treat Lyme, because this is what scares people a lot and what delays them in their treatment, because you will get worse before you get better. It's called a Jerisch-Herxheimer reaction. Or in the Lyme world, we have nicknamed it a Herx or a Herxing reaction. So a lot of people will say I'm Herxing today. That is a detox reaction. So in the normal world, that's what people know it as. You do a little detox cleanse and feel bad for a week, and then you feel better. In the Lyme world, you feel bad for a very long time before you start feeling better. So there are certain toxins that are given off by this infection when it dies, and just in general. One of them is a biotoxin, which is actually germ warfare, and it's been patented, and it could potentially in the future be used as germ warfare, which is why somebody patented it. Yay. So that's inside our bodies when we treat Lyme. We have to be very, very careful with the treatment, because those toxins are sometimes more dangerous for people than the infection actually is. So if you go too fast, you can put yourself in the hospital. So we have to go at a slow pace that your body can handle. Going fast is very, very dangerous with this disease. So what those reactions can look like, include and exclude and have more of, can be rashes, headache, fatigue, chills or fever, pain, big time, emotional disturbances, a heightening of any other symptoms that you already have. So whatever brought you to looking for a solution to this disease can actually get worse before it gets better, which is why you need to go slow, because it's already uncomfortable. And this herxing can actually happen as soon as you take a new supplement, no matter how benign you think it is. Oh, this is, going to be fine for you, and then all of a sudden you're in big trouble. And it can also, some people, it can be a few hours later, or sometimes days later, it just builds up, and then all of a sudden 4 days later, they're like, why do I feel so bad? And they started something earlier in the week. It can also happen with the Lyme reproduction cycle, which is every 4 to 6 weeks. So people will find that they feel a little worse every once in a while, and they spike at certain times. So you can actually, if you really feel like it, track your symptoms and find out. It can also spike at the full moon, big time. Most people do, even if they don't realize it. In our clinic, we know the full moon is going to bring some people in trouble, and we're going to get some calls. And it can also spike with your menstrual cycle. And a lack of obvious herxing doesn't mean a lack of infection. So some people, either they just start feeling better and go on with life. That's rare, but it does happen. And some people just don't notice because they don't have body awareness of what's actually going on. So if you don't notice anything, it doesn't mean your treatment isn't working. So those toxins are present at any stage in Lyme and your treatment. So don't ever rule it out. So what we do, keeping all of that in mind, is to prepare for treatment. The first thing we have to do is look at somebody's detox pathways. And my biomeridian testing can tell me how stressed your liver is and your kidney is, so that I can help you with support for those things. And sometimes we can't even treat the Lyme right away because the liver or the kidneys are way too stressed, and there's no way you'd be able to handle all those toxins. So we have a look at that, and we support them in whatever way that person needs. And we also have to look at gut infections, because if you have candida or parasite or anything else going on and your gut doesn't work, then you're not going to absorb all the supplements you're going to take, and it's not going to work as well, and you'll actually waste a little bit of money. So that part's important as well. We also need chelators for the biotoxins. Favorites in my clinic are green clay and chlorella, but there's many other things. And those bind to the toxins and drag them safely out of the body. The green clay is awesome if you're just having a super bad day and nothing else is working, and then you can take that and it will actually calm everything down. And of course we have to treat biofilm depending on the patient. I do like to start with the treatment first, because we know the biofilm will actually be created as soon as you start antimicrobial anything. So as long as the person is stable enough, I'll do that treatment work first, unless we need to just get them on their Lyme treatment and then deal with that later. We also need to support the immune system so you can start making antibodies and it can start working properly. And we need to avoid supplements that feed the infections, which include magnesium, calcium, iron, and hormones. And then we always start slow. And so the biofilm, those I do like to start as soon as I can. I have a variety of things that I use, and I will change it up and just kind of rotate it. And we start slow with that as well. Everything we start slow. So I use herbs in my clinic, and most of my clients choose that, and they come to me for that because the antibiotics aren't working, or if they're like me, they just don't want to take 2 to 4 years of antibiotics. And some people do choose to do them at the same time, but that does make it harder to treat because of how the antibiotics react and how hard they are in your liver, your gallbladder, and your gut. And we need to I treat the biofilm and the Lyme before the co-infections, unless the co-infection is causing a huge amount of problems. I mean, this is individual. So I can't say that this person is going to have the same treatment as this person. It's different for everybody according to their needs. And we always go slow. So at a certain point in treatment, which does vary per person depending on how much they have going on, I do a technique called pulsing. So Dr. Lee Cowden proved that within 36 hours of stopping any antimicrobial agents, the biofilm will actually come out, the infection will start to come out of the biofilm. And so what we do is we stop all antimicrobial agents, and then we wait 36 hours, and then we actually start something new that it doesn't recognize at full dose. So in the beginning, I'll start slow and I'll ease somebody into it, and then when I do the pulsing, it's something new, and this is like a full dose. This isn't an easing in thing. This, a client said to me the other day, pulsing sucks, so it is a little bit difficult in the beginning, but this is one of the ways to deal with biofilm. We don't have enough studies on things that work 100%, so we need to do everything we can. So I use 6 different herbs for this, and I rotate them, and the client does this for a minimum of 15 months, and it's often longer. People, as they start to feel better, they just don't want to do this again, and we will never know if it's all gone and why just leave a little bit. So they'll go for as long as they're comfortable, and that's a choice we make in clinic together. And then, I have had lots of people able to stop the program, and move on to a completely normal life. We do a little bit of recovery, or a lot, depending on how much damage they'd have. And it is possible to repair a lot of what the Lyme does. Sometimes we're stuck with something, but it is possible to turn it around. And I do use herbs, so I am, which is a little different than how pharmaceuticals work, because the herbs will get your body to actually start working on their own, whereas pharmaceuticals will just cover up a symptom that's there, and that damage will always be there. So with what I do, we're able to actually recover everything. So I just want to remind you that at the height of my illness, I had 125 plus symptoms, and I was twitching all over the place. I now have 3, and I think if you were to walk down the street and find somebody you consider them healthy, I'd probably have less than them. These actually don't bother me. So before treatment, I worked part-time, and the rest of the time I sat on the couch and drooled, which actually isn't a joke, it's the truth. My husband is attesting to that one. I didn't participate in life at all. I now work full-time. I run a very busy practice, and it's very demanding. And I run errands, I cook, I clean, socialize. I go into stores, which is a big deal because of the chemical sensitivities. And I do exercise and yoga. So all of those things are things that I would have only, dreamed of 4 years ago. They just weren't even in my vocabulary at that point. So this definitely can change. So one of the other things we need to talk about, so Lyme is horrible, so let's just not get it, right? We need way more awareness for Lyme prevention. So I'm just going to talk about what you do when you find a tick or when you're bitten by one, so you can help the next person that is, so that they don't have to deal with this. Number 1, just don't get bitten, okay? So when you go out hiking or walking your dog at the dog park, you wear light-colored clothes so you can see the ticks climbing on you. You wear pants and you tuck them into your socks. And you stay on the paths. If you go into long grass, the ticks actually sit on the top of the long grass and they'll jump off onto you. So you want to stay away from those areas. And this isn't paranoia, this is prevention. It's like wearing a seatbelt. You also want to apply insect repellent. But one of the things that there have been studies, this is from James Shaler, so he's a leading Lyme researcher and doctor. DEET is only effective if it's applied in very, very high doses, which will melt your clothes and cause neurological problems. So DEET really isn't our way to go at this point. There are some oils that work, and we need more studies. I think you can actually buy insect repellent made from these. And there is also, this is a homeopathic made here in Calgary. We have some samples here today. This is 90% effective against repelling ticks. And it's actually something you take orally every 3 hours when you're outside, and they won't like the smell of you, ticks and mosquitoes, and they'll just leave you alone. It was actually, Sarah's son has the best explanation for how this works, because he was being eaten alive, and they was out golfing. He said, you can tell when it wears off, because you're fine, then all of a sudden, they're all over you. So the Mozzie Q does work. Also, just be sure to do tick checks. So before you get in your car or your house, you need to check everywhere and get somebody to check your hair, check all your body parts. And you need to check your clothes. And if you're in a car, I would actually bring a change of clothes. and take them off, put them in a plastic bag and get them home, and then put them in your dryer immediately, because that will kill the ticks on the highest heat. They won't die in the washer, so put them in the dryer and then wash them, and then get in the shower right away, because if you missed one, you want to wash it off. And remember that it takes less than 24 hours after a bug bite to get Lyme. When I was 16, I had 50 ticks on me for only an hour, and I was only bitten by a few of them, so it doesn't actually take very long. These are our ticks. We do have a brochure here which has all this information on, so you can take it and pass it out to anybody that hikes or goes to dog parks.
Do they all carry Lyme?
No. They don't all carry Lyme, but I'm saying the dog parks because my cat has Lyme disease and he hasn't left our backyard, and we live 5 minutes from here. So don't think you're safe because you're in the city or the suburbs. So, I mean, we've got huge parks in Calgary. Things that you don't want to do when you remove a tick: you don't want to burn it off because it will vomit inside of you. This is what my brothers used to do when we were kids. And you don't want to suffocate it with petroleum jelly, because that can take a really long time, and we don't want it on for 48 hours. And don't grab it with your fingers for 2 reasons. The first reason is that can actually cause its head to break off and be stuck inside of you. And the second reason is I do know a case where the mom pulled a tick off of a child this way, and they both got Lyme because the tick was infected and got on her hand. So don't touch them. When you go out, always keep this in your car. So this is a tick kit. There are 2 ways to remove ticks in this tick kit, and I recommend just carrying this with you in case one doesn't work. You need fine tip tweezers, you need a hand wash or iodine, a Ziploc bag or a vial, a string, a straw, and surgical gloves. So the first way to remove a tick is that you take tweezers, you put it at its mouth, and you pull it straight up. You don't wiggle or twist because you can break off parts of it. So you just kind of just gently pull in one direction until it actually comes off, and you clean the wound and all of that. So the second way is with a string and a knot. This way I like the best. So what you do is there's a video here. I'll talk while it's on. As long as it works. Here we go. So the straw is to guide your knot, and you tie a knot in your string and you put it around the tick, and what it will do is it will tie around the tick's head, and it will actually hopefully go around its mouth so that you're holding its mouth shut so it can't throw up inside of you. And then you just pull it off in a straight line. You don't want to wiggle or twist, and it won't run away. It will actually be stuck in that string. So you just pull that off and it just comes right off. And I mean, who can't travel with a bit of string if you're going hiking? You don't want to take a lot of room in your pocket. He's tightening the knot, and then he just pulled it right off. So I don't know if you saw that, it came off. So there's one more way. Sorry if you don't like ticks. So this is with xylocaine. You have to go to a doctor's office for this, and I don't think there's a lot that actually know how to do this. The xylocaine is a numbing agent, and it goes underneath the tick. You can see it bubble up. They say that it just is creating pressure, and the tick is going to climb off. It probably numbs the tick as well because it's sucking that area, so it probably just doesn't feel right. This takes a little bit, but this guy's going to crawl off. You can see his foot starting to move there. You guys see that? In there. Ugh. So this is considered one of the more effective ways, but I think it would be one of the hardest ways because you'd have to find a doctor right away that could do that for you. I know, sorry.
And wait for you just.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all struggling watching this one. There he goes. Ugh. So also, if you're taking your dog with you out hiking to the dog park, you need to check your pets for ticks. Our cat had 2 ticks on and brought them in the house and was diagnosed with Lyme disease a couple weeks later, only because I made them test him. So protect your pets. The only way they're recognizing Lyme disease in Alberta right away is in dogs. My cat's case wasn't reported because my vet didn't know. So just protect your pets and the ticks they'll bring into your house. So this is also in my brochure, so you don't have to write this down, but the reason why I keep saying bring a vial or a Ziploc bag is you want to catch the tick, especially if it bit somebody. But even if it didn't, it's actually a good idea to catch them, because Alberta is at the moment doing a study to see if we have Lyme disease in Alberta, and we would like to prove to them that we do. So the information at the top here, my mom lives in BC and she collects ticks on her property all the time. She was told it was safe to put them in a Ziploc bag, and then a second Ziploc bag, and then tape it shut, and you have to put grass in there so they'll stay alive. And they will actually just go in an envelope and survive that. That's how tough those guys are. If you're not comfortable doing that, then put them in a medicine vial. And then you want to mark it, and then this website listed here, you can just grab a brochure so you know this website tells you the nearest place that you can send it to or take it to, and they will test it, and then hopefully will tell you whether it's infected. So if somebody was bitten by this tick, then this is the cheapest way for you and the best, most effective way for you to know if you were infected with Lyme. So if you're bitten, don't kill the tick, keep the tick, and send it away to get tested. And if you are bitten, then get on something right away just to be safe. Don't take chances. So there is hope for the future. There's a lot of new research, and we're trying right now to get this passed in Canada so we can recognize Lyme as a chronic disease, so we can all get help. And there are support groups and other ways to get involved. Lyme Disease Association of Alberta has just started as well. And we do have a forum on our website that we're trying to get more active to offer support for people in Alberta, because any other forum that you can find is American, and I think it's nice to have the support a little closer. So that's on our website. That's dr-risk.com. And before my husband comes up and just tells you about a project that he and I are working on, I actually just want to thank him, because I wouldn't have been able to do this alone, and I do feel for people that are. But not only is he my techie guy and does all my other stuff, but he's also, was making me dinner when I was sitting on the couch drilling. So my husband Alex is just going to let you know about a little project we're doing.
Thanks for coming, everybody. It's really nice to see a good turnout of new people that we haven't seen before. Quite a few of you are new, because the more we kind of spread the word, the more recognized it's going to get, right? And we're all sufferers of how unrecognized this disease is, right? So this project is all about kind of referring how isolating this disease can really be, right? Because, you're sitting at home, you're really sick, what are you going to do? Well, books is one of the things that people quite actively, they read, because it's a little bit, lower energy kind of activity, right? So a lot of Lyme patients read. So we had this idea, you can't talk to other people, why don't we tell other Lyme stories to people, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to collect Lyme stories from either people who have Lyme or who are taking care of Lyme patients, right? We're going to put them in a book similar to a chicken soup for the soul type book, right? And we're going to publish it. And we're going to market it across North America, so other people who have Lyme and, they're either new to it, they can see, either get hope, right? Because a lot of these stories hopefully are going to be positive, right? Or at least they'll recognize something in those stories, something in themselves, so hopefully that can help them, right? So if you guys want to participate, you need to complete this form, and so there's kind of like a little bit of instructions there of how to submit your story. right? And just email it to us or mail it to us. And that's it. We're basically going to collect, 200, 300 stories, kind of read through them, see which ones fit kind of a theme, and that's what we're going to do. So if you guys do want to participate, please do. And if you know somebody who might want to be interested in this, please forward that form to them so that they can help us with this project. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take half the money to do it.
So we're going to wrap up. I know it's getting late and it's a little hot in here. If anybody has any further questions, we can speak after. You want? Sure, go ahead, Jackie.
I just wanted to mention that the Calgary Lyme Support Group meeting is going to be held on the 20th. It's going to be the first one from 6 to 8:30. I think they're going to ask for a $5 support fee or something. It's going to be at the Signal Hill Library from 6 to 8:30.
So Jackie just said that there is a support group on his is July, right? No, August. No, it's okay. August 20th at the Signal Hill Library at 7:30 p.m. 6 to 8:30 p.m. And that's with the Lyme Disease Association, so you can contact them if you want more information, or ask Jackie after. She has it written down there. So, Sarah's going to wrap up.
I'm like itching. I want the mic back. I want the mic back. So, thank you for sitting here and listening. Rebecca had Dr. Risk had a lot of great information tonight, so thank you for giving us all of your time and energy and information on that. Just 4 really quick points. If you have Lyme, you're not alone. I hope this night has shown you that you are not battling this alone, that there are other people here, there are other support groups, there are people to talk to. Secondly, it takes time. It takes time to heal. So whatever treatment you choose, whether it be antibiotics or non-antibiotics or whatever you do, stick to it. Don't switch every month. I've just talked to so many people that have got frustrated and switched and got frustrated and switched, and they've ended up being sicker. So whatever you choose, stick to it. The third one always gets me, just thinking about it. But I want to acknowledge all of you who are looking after people with Lyme, because we can't do it without you. And I know there are days that you feel helpless, and it's frustrating, and they're crazy, and they're anxious, and they're sick, and we just stand by their side, and it doesn't matter how helpless you feel. You just stand with them, and that makes all the difference. So thank you, Alex. Thank you. And lastly, the people with Lyme, you'll get better. You will get better. We can get through this. You're strong. The cool thing about Lyme is that we can't just go to our doctors and say, fix me, like people with heart disease or people with cancer. We are strong, we're tenacious, and we'll get through this. So thank you again for your time. The washrooms are outside if you need it. Feel free to mill about and ask questions. You can approach me, you can approach Dr. Risk, talk amongst yourselves, whatever works. Thank you very much for coming.